Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. This is a preview episode of the bonus Cowboy special that we did as part of the Bertie Ahern series. This is the story of Ben Dunne and how one man's big weekend in Florida directly led to multiple politicians having to step down, including eventually Bertie himself. So this is a couple of minutes from the start of that episode. If you want to hear the full thing, you can head over to Patreon and spend €5, which will give you access to this episode as well as every other episode we put up there in the last 5 years we've been doing this show. You can get them all. The season 1 is up there, the Sean Quinn stuff. There's an episode about Maddie McGrath, which is pretty good. All the film club stuff, all the live episodes, they're all there. All for €5. You can pay €5 and then cancel it, playing us for fools, getting hours of content for €5. But speaking of live episodes, we've got loads of dates coming up. We are heading all over the country. Belfast, Cork, Galway, Dundalk, Dublin, probably some of the ones, Limerick, and so on. But they're all on our website, which will be linked in the description of this episode. There's also a link to the Instagram where we're throwing up videos of the episodes that we've recorded, and that's it. So if you enjoy this few minutes of the Ben Dunne story, then go follow the link in the description and get the whole thing, and we'll be back with part 3 of the Ahern series very soon. Good luck.
Settle up, now partner, join me down this here trail. If you're looking for adventure, listen closely to this tale. Brown envelopes on the table, you know how it goes. The old fable, that's for no one else to know. Taking in cash, hand on a fist, the real McCoy's gangster list. Stories of cowboys that dwell in the land, beg, steal, and borrow with salutes to the scam. The kind that pull the wool over your eyes, get your shirt off your back and call this surprise. Sullied names and cover-ups full of allies and allies. Deceivers, cheats, and don't forget the lies, lies, lies.
Ben Dunne Jr., born in Cork in 1949 to Nora Maloney and Ben Dunne Sr. Ben Dunne Sr. was a Ross Trevor businessman who founded Dunne Stores. So, big chain shop operation in Ireland. He had used to work for Roach's Stores, which is the big one before that, branched out on his own and set up Dunne Stores. So Ben Dunne Jr., he was the youngest, or else the 5th youngest of 6 children. I assume one of the kids might have died actually based on this information. But anyway, even though he's the youngest, he still gets the junior accolade. So he's got an older brother, Frank, I think. But anyway, he becomes Ben Dunne Jr. So
the year's 1992.
Not just yet. First of all, the year's 1981. Ben Dunne Jr. gets kidnapped by the IRA and is held for 7 days. This was a time when the IRA needed money, you know. What are they going to do? Get a loan from the credit union? You kidnap some businessmen. And there were about 10 businessmen on the island at the time. So Ben Dunne Jr. was his turn. He gets kidnapped by the IRA for a week. He's released unharmed after someone pays his ransom. Estimated to be around $1.5 million. That's what was publicized at the time. But who, if anyone, actually paid the money? So in interviews years later, Ben would say he does believe the money was paid for his release, but that the amount was far less than reported. He'd joke he was never worth $1.5 million, which is a great joke for a man who's, you know, kidnapped for 7 days.
Who's definitely worth a lot more than $1.5 million.
Also true. I think the estimates in here are somewhere like, well, actually, yeah, we'll talk about the richness in a bit.
For American listeners, there's probably a Dunne Stores in every town, major town in Ireland.
Before Aldi and Lidl, it was the dominant.
It's the Marks and for English people, it's our Marks and Spencers. It's fancier than Super Value or Tesco.
Well,
Super Value is fancy too.
We'll talk. Yeah, the reason why it's fancier is because of this story as well. It used to be the Common Man's. It would have been where we'd be going. It was the Aldi and Lidl before the events of this story happened. Mm-hmm. So not only did it change Irish society, it changed Dunne Store's pricing policies, which is really the big takeaway from
we'll get on to that.
But back to he's kidnapped, he gets released. He says, so one of the theories of where the money came from is that Dunne Stores paid the money, that his dad paid it. On that, Ben said, I don't know, I was never told. I've heard different stories. I asked my father and he wouldn't tell me. He said, look, it's none of your business. What I've done or what we've done is our own business. You'll never know. which is a great.
This is kept in the family. I'm your son. Youngest son.
What I've done or what we've done. If anything,
what we've done.
Yeah,
so he's an accomplice, but he can't know, which is probably a good thing.
So we'll circle back to this at the end, but maybe that's something you just say about your dad after he's died. And he's like, I don't know where the money came from, but I mean, that's a great thing to say to your son. It also heavily implies that he did do it, but anyway, in the years after, Ben would say that paying the ransom was wrong. He wouldn't have done it, but really, who knows what they would have done in that circumstance. He also said they didn't cooperate with the guards investigating it because the IRA, threatened to kill his family if he said anything. But he's not one to hold a grudge. He'd also tell a story. Years later on, he was invited to a lunch, kind of get-together thing by his old friend Mary Lou MacDonald, Sinn Féin TD. And he found himself sitting at the top of the table beside Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness. And, he says... You could feel the electricity, and McGuinness and Adams looked just not comfortable. He said, I wasn't too comfortable myself either, but I don't like that sort of situation to be allowed to go on. So I turned around to him, I said, listen, fellas, this is a fundraising lunch. It's a refund I'll be looking for. That broke the ice, and we're all laughing and went on to chat about other things, except kidnapping. That was off the table. So...
we're just going to say this now. I like him.
Yeah. I mean,
he's a showman. He's funny.
Yeah.
He hasn't referred to himself in the third person yet.
He hasn't. No. He's your Quint. There's a lot
of.
He's
a Quinn.
There's a lot of. I read a lot of reports of people who worked for him who's like, he's good crack. And a lot of people were like, the man's a maniac. Both are true, I would assume.
I would assume one to be true. Yeah. The other would have to be true as well.
We'll see in the events of this story, he loves fun. He's a larger-than-life character. I'd say if you were working on one of his building sites or just like stocking shelves, he'd have the crack with you. But as a boss, he would probably also be terrible. But, they're both... Yeah, here he is.
But you're working 18-hour days and somehow morale in the company's never been higher.
Yeah, exactly.
The Slack chats are off the chain.
But because this is the Patreon, we can just full out and say it that the joke there was that Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness. He knows how to tell a story. He knows how to keep a secret. He's a big figure, larger than life, eccentric. People kind of like him, but even though he's the youngest child, he steps up when Ben Dunne Sr. dies in 1983. He steps up to become the de facto leader of the Dunnes group. Which again, huge. There's a lot of money involved. It's a big organization. So he becomes the director of the family business just in time for the South Africa boycott of 1984, where a load of workers walked out in opposition to apartheid South Africa, selling oranges in Dunnes stores, which is an episode that we will definitely do at some point. It's written down. But anyway.
Just before his dad, is he going to come up at all again? I know he's passed out. So what was his crack? Because he seemed fairly ominous there. He was like, never mind what we did. Where are they from? They're from...
Oh, yeah, he's from Australia actually. Yeah, so he would be a bit like.
But never mind what we did. What I did or what we did.
That's a great moment in every father's life to be able to pay the IRA ransom money to get your son freed, and then when he asks it, he's like, "You fucking never mind. My business is my business. Don't you ever ask me about my business again, pal." But
he gets that from his mother.
Yeah, I didn't have time to go too much into Senior. He starts off in Roaches, sets up this giant business, very successful businessman, probably also insane, I don't know. But
that's it. There's no huge stories about him.
There probably are. I mean, you don't get that rich, but this, to be honest, the amount of spin-offs I've written from this episode where I found myself like, have you ever heard of TACA? So there was a financial group set up in the 1950s by a series of businessmen called TACA. I can't remember what it stands for. Or I think it's short for the Irish for help or something. And this is basically like a boys' club of the richest people in the country who financed Fianna Fáil. And maybe every once in a while dictated exactly what they did. And these are like the names that will go on. They show up a good bit in all these episodes we've written for this. But at some point I'll go back and do the Charlie Haughey story and how it's beautiful. It's a conspiracy theory that's also very, like, all the names are connected. Everyone works for each other's company. They're buying property off each other. It's crazy. But it's just this group that I never really heard of that definitely dictated how Ireland was built after World War II. And Ben Dunne is involved there as well. But we're going back to Ben Dunne Jr. This isn't time for conspiracy theories about men who may have, secretly built up the country. This is a fun-loving, big character, big man. He likes having the crack. Once he takes over, he starts flying suppliers and like big customers out to the US of A to play a bit of golf. It doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of good golf courses here. Mm-hmm. He flies them over to the USA because he can, Jason. All expenses paid. Who's not going to say yes to that? So he brings them over to the States. Part of the deal apparently was that he'd also like put giant wagers on the golf matches that obviously he, as one of the richest men in the country, could afford. But he'd bring you over like all expenses paid and he'd be like, what about we put $1 million on this one? Like, well, hang on a second. But that's the sort of man he was, On one of these golf trips in early 1992, he finds himself alone in a hotel room in Orlando, Florida, with a big bag of cocaine.
How did that get there?
He figures, well, sure, I'm not going to do all this coke myself. So he rings up a local escorts in a flash agency. So now there's two of them.
And to listen to the rest of the story, you can follow the link in the description to Patreon.